Call of Duty Modern Warfare usually carries that heavy Activision premium, making a $7 price tag feel like a typo. Even if multiplayer lobbies aren't your usual hangout, the campaign alone justifies giving up a fast food meal for this. Clearing a pitch-black townhouse using night vision goggles remains one of the most tense, meticulously crafted shooter sequences ever made. The weapon animations have a weight to them that ruined other shooters for a lot of people. It demands a massive chunk of hard drive space, but for a 90% discount, getting access to this level of polish is basically a no-brainer. Dead Island 2 was trapped in development hell for a decade, which makes the fact that it actually runs well completely shocking. Dropping $5 on an experience built entirely around Hollywood mansions and wildly excessive violence is an easy call. The procedural flush-tearing system is disgustingly accurate. Hitting a zombie with a pool cue visibly shatters specific bones and tears skin exactly where the impact happens. The story isn't going to win any writing awards, and the humor rarely lands, but strapping a car battery to a machete and turning a pool party into a hazard zone never stops being entertaining. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt fundamentally broke the scale for how much content a single game should have. Picking this up for under $4 feels slightly illegal considering players routinely clock over 200 hours on a single save file. Entire side quests involving haunted frying pans or drunken vampires have better writing than most full-priced releases. Combat movement can feel a little floaty until you get the rhythm down, but the sheer density of this world makes up for it. Getting lost in a grim, politically charged fantasy continent is easily the best value you'll find during this entire event. Assetto Corsa Competizione demands respect the second you sit behind the wheel. Sim racing can be a terrifyingly expensive hobby, so grabbing arguably the most accurate GT3 simulation ever built for $4 is wild. The tire physics model is so unforgivingly realistic that you can actually feel the difference in grip when track temperatures drop a few degrees. Attempting to keep a Porsche 911 straight during a midnight downpour will make your hands sweat. Playing on a keyboard is essentially impossible, but if you own even a cheap force feedback wheel, this will instantly consume your evenings. The Forest understands psychological horror better than most games entirely dedicated to the genre. Crashing on an island and building a log cabin sounds relaxing until you notice a pale figure silently watching you from the tree line. The enemy AI is famously erratic. Sometimes they attack in force, and other times they just stalk you from a distance, testing your defenses and trying to figure out your sleeping schedule. Convincing a friend to spend barely $4 to experience pure paranoia while frantically chopping down trees in the pitch black is exactly what co-op gaming was made for. Ghost of Tsushima executes the samurai cinematic fantasy flawlessly. Even at $36, the sheer visual direction makes it a smart investment. Instead of cluttering your screen with mini-maps and compass markers, the game literally uses the wind to guide you through burning villages and massive bamboo forests. Wiping the blood off your katana after perfectly parrying 3 Mongols in a mud-soaked duel never loses that movie-like impact. The stealth mechanics are incredibly basic, but when the swordplay feels this heavy and responsive, quietly sneaking around usually takes a back seat to challenging entire camps to a frontal assault. A Plague Tale: Innocence takes a very simple light and dark mechanic and turns it into pure nightmare fuel. Seeing it drop to $4 is the perfect excuse to experience a truly miserable medieval France. The star of the show isn't the stealth or the crafting, it's the rendering technology capable of putting thousands of squealing, flesh-eating rats on screen at once. Throwing a rock to break an enemy's lantern, instantly condemning them to be swallowed by a tidal wave of rodents is brutal. It's heavily linear, but that focused pacing keeps the tension tightly wound from start to finish. The Quarry is essentially an interactive summer camp slasher movie where your mistakes get teenagers permanently killed. Throwing down $6 for a branching narrative with graphics this realistic is a solid alternative to a movie ticket. The facial animations are so heavily detailed that you can usually read when a character is lying just by their eye movements. Making snap decisions while trying to figure out who to trust inevitably leads to someone getting a shotgun blast to the chest by accident. Having friends shout contradictory advice at you from the couch is the ideal way to survive the night. Dead Space defined modern survival horror, and seeing the complete ground-up remake sitting at $6 feels like a glitch in the store. The sound design alone justifies the purchase. Walking through the abandoned USG Ishimura while listening to heavy metal boots clank against the floor grates, knowing every ventilation shaft is a potential threat, keeps your heart rate spiked. The strategic dismemberment system forces you to stay perfectly calm while aiming for limbs, even when a necromorph is sprinting at your face. It's an exhausting, terrifying, perfectly paced masterpiece that respects your time and your nerves. Ghostwire Tokyo puts a totally bizarre spin on the standard open-world formula. Walking through a rain-slicked, hyper-detailed recreation of Tokyo where the entire population is vanished sets a seriously lonely mood. Instead of guns, your hands shoot elemental magic using incredibly fluid, fast-paced finger-weaving animations that look like they were pulled straight from an anime fight scene. The open-world activities can get a bit repetitive after a dozen hours, but spending $6 just to explore a haunted Shibuya and feed stray dogs while ripping the cores out of Slenderman lookalikes is absolutely worth it. Baldur's Gate 3 ruined role-playing games for a lot of people by raising the standard impossibly high. Grabbing it at a discount, even a smaller one, guarantees your social life will evaporate. The sheer volume of variables the engine tracks is staggering. You can bypass a heavily guarded fortress by stacking crates, turning into a cat, and sneaking through a tiny hole in the roof, and the characters will actually comment on your weird choices. The inventory management can get incredibly messy, but having a world that organically reacts to your absolute worst ideas is a rare privilege. Warhammer 40,000 Darktide nails the desperate, dirty feeling of surviving against impossible odds. Dropping a $10 bill to team up with 3 friends and purge a sprawling hive city is a phenomenal deal. Developer Farshark has heavily overhauled the progression system since launch, making the class building highly addictive. The real draw is the melee combat. Revving up a chainsaw and cleaving through a dozen plague zombies delivers an auditory crunch that never gets old. The matchmaking can be a bit chaotic with randoms, but surviving a frenzied horde with a sliver of health leaves you buzzing with adrenaline. Stellar Blade brings a heavy-action RPG mechanics into a gorgeous Wild-Est wasteland. Catching a recent release dropping into the $40 range makes jumping in highly tempting. The combat sits perfectly between fast-paced character action and heavy, deliberate parry timing. Learning an aggressive boss's action pattern and deflecting a 10-hit combo without taking a scratch triggers an incredibly satisfying audio cue. Platforming sections can occasionally feel a little stiff during the main campaign, but the core loop of unlocking absurdly flashy skills and tearing through grotesque biomechanical monsters remains razor-sharp from start to finish. Red Dead Redemption 2 operates on a level of obsessive detail that most studios would never attempt. Snagging Arthur Morgan's story for $15 provides more hours of premium entertainment than most streaming subscriptions. The world feels completely indifferent to your existence. NPCs maintain daily routines, mud physically cakes onto your boots, and firing a gun in a tight canyon creates a realistic echo. The slow, deliberate pacing isn't for everyone, but eventually that heavy rhythm pulls you into the most convincing digital frontier ever built. Grand Theft Auto V refuses to fade away, and the Enhanced Edition proves exactly why this map remains a permanent fixture on hard drives. If you somehow haven't grabbed this yet, $15 is the sweet spot. The single-player campaign holds up beautifully, but the real longevity comes from the PC ecosystem. Jumping into heavily modded roleplay servers or downloading custom scripts that turn the city into a chaotic physics playground keeps things endlessly entertaining. It takes ages to load into online sessions, but the sheer sandbox freedom guarantees you'll get your money's worth. God of War Ragnarök expands on the Norse apocalypse with an absurd amount of cinematic weight. Seeing a massive PlayStation heavy hitter get a price cut makes it incredibly hard to ignore. The Leviathan axe remains the most satisfying weapon in gaming history. Throwing it into a raider's chest and snapping it back to your hand with a heavy thud delivers an immense feeling of power. The puzzle sections can sometimes feel like speed bumps during the main campaign, but tearing through mythological gods with bare fists while watching Kratos struggle with fatherhood is an absolute masterclass in pacing. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 takes the momentum of the original game and straps a rocket to it. Dropping below $50 makes swinging through New York an easy addition to the backlog. The inclusion of the web wings completely changes how you navigate the city. Catching a slipstream and gliding across the river at terrifying speeds feels incredibly smooth. Switching instantly between Peter and Miles with almost zero loading screens is a technical marvel. The side activities occasionally dip into generic territory, but the sheer joy of the momentum keeps you firmly hooked to the controller. Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice actively demands perfection, and grabbing the GTOI edition at half price is the perfect way to test your patience. Unlike other From Software titles, you cannot grind your way out of a problem or hide behind a massive shield. The posture system forces you to stand your ground, clash swords, and learn the exact rhythm of every single fight. Surviving a multi-phase boss fight with a sliver of health left gives you an adrenaline rush that very few games can replicate. The learning curve is brutal, but the resulting mastery is intoxicating. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 refuses to hold your hand, dropping you into a painstakingly accurate 15th century Bohemia. Catching a massive 60% discount on a sequel this ambitious is rare. Everything requires effort. Swinging a sword feels heavy and clumsy until you actually put in the time to train your character's muscles. Even reading a book is impossible until you learn the alphabet. It definitely has a layer of Euro jank, and managing hunger mechanics can be tedious, but fully immersing yourself in a historical simulator where you start as an absolute peasant is deeply rewarding. Rust is a fascinating social experiment, heavily disguised as a survival game. Spending $20 essentially buys you a ticket to pure, unhinged human psychology. Waking up naked on a beach with a rock and trying to negotiate your survival over proximity chat rarely goes well. You'll spend hours building a stone base, only to log off and realize someone blew off your front door with rockets while you slept. It is punishing, unforgiving, and toxic, but orchestrating a successful raid on a rival compound using scrap weapons generates memories you'll talk about for years. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 delivers the ultimate unfiltered power fantasy. Securing a heavy 70% discount on an absolute spectacle like this is the exact reason we wait for these sales. The proprietary Swarm engine puts a terrifying number of Tyranids on screen at once, making every defensive stand feel like a hopeless cinematic set piece. Executing a perfect parry to instantly execute a leaping alien provides serious momentum to the heavy, stomping combat. The progression tree is a little thin, but wading waist-deep into a horde of monsters with a heavy bolter is unmatched stress relief. Ready or Not strips away the fast-paced sliding of modern shooters and replaces it with agonizing claustrophobic tension. Grabbing this SWAT simulator at half price is a phenomenal investment if you have patient friends. Checking under a door with an optic wand, stacking up and breaching a room with flashbangs requires intense communication. Rushing a corner blindly will instantly get your entire squad wiped out. The AI suspects are incredibly unpredictable, sometimes surrendering immediately and other times pulling a hidden weapon. It demands serious focus, making every successful arrest feel incredibly earned.